I think the other thing too to realize is that this is all happening very quickly. I I personally thought nation state adoption would happen, probably in a year or in 2 years' time, and nation state attacks on Bitcoin would not happen until maybe now. But everything's accelerating from the schedule I had. So my expectation now is that it's going to happen faster than I think it will. That's why I'm saying, the next year probably will hit 1 million. I thought maybe this year, but it's difficult to predict these things because Bitcoin is on this exponential growth curve. And when you're standing right in front of it, just imagine you're staring at this massive wave coming at you. You remember in Interstellar? You've seen Interstellar, right?
I watched part of it. I didn't get to the
You know
ending of
the
it.
water wave, right? And
Yeah.
initially they say, "Oh, it's mountains," and then then Matthew says, "Oh, it's a wave. Those are waves. It's a wave, right?" But
Oh,
you're
right.
looking at something far in the distance, and it's hard to tell. And if you're looking at Bitcoin's exponential growth, you're kind of staring at this wall, and it's like all in front of you, all around you, and it's just approaching you very quickly. But you don't really have a sense of how far away it is. But the thing is, you can look at it and maybe see some details on it that indicate that it is coming closer. But it's impossible to see exactly how big this thing and how fast it is moving towards you because it's everywhere. So that's how I view it. Like we're trying to figure out when uh, this wall is going to hit us, but you can only kind of rough out details on it to tell how close it is to you because it's so big.
So, what would you say if somebody says, "Oh, I don't think that this is the right thing for us"? I mean, I guess you just have to teach them the basics. What's the most common pushback that you've gotten?
Not so much. And if I
No.
do hear some of those things, I just kind of point to BlackRock and say,
Oh,
you go tell them it's a pyramid scheme, or you go tell them it's a scam. Like it's the largest asset manager on the planet. Like what more, what more certainty do you need that it's a legitimate asset class? I don't know. If that doesn't convince you, nothing can. But yeah, I mean, other criticisms, it's generally more like we don't need it, or we think we're fine. That's the general sentiment. They just don't think it's one going to become money, and two they don't see any problems. Even though from the outside looking in, we can see problems in the country there, and they probably need Bitcoin. But generally they think it's fine, and maybe that's a symptom of the disconnect of governments and the people. Right, like in Canada, we have a lot of societal problems, which I think you're aware of, and economic problems. But I forgot when I saw some campaign from the Green Party, and they're saying we're going to fix the climate, and it's like that's your top priority, really? Like, there's a drug, there's a major drug uh, endemic here, and people are ODing and just high out of their minds on the streets, and there's massive amount of crime, and you think that's number one, huh? I guess the negativity I have is like, can this be fixed? Because like, let's say the conservatives come into power, Pierre is the next PM. He's got probably like 4 years to make some significant changes, and it's questionable if he will be able to affect policy and show results in that short of a time frame, other than going in on Bitcoin hardcore and
yeah.
doing our own strategic Bitcoin reserve. But generally people want some change. They elect a new government, and before the new government has time to fix something, they blame the problems caused by the previous government on the current one, not understanding that fixing things takes more time than breaking things. So then you bring in the other government that's been saying, "Yeah, we'll fix it," even though they're the ones that broke it, and then the cycle just repeats
Yeah.
as you kind of spiral downwards and get
Yeah.
worse and worse. So I like to have hope, and I think there is a chance that the Trump administration could fix things, but it takes very radical thinking, like disregarding the shitcoin. Let's say the Doge initiative, in and of itself, is to downsize government and cut spending. I think it's a good thing. Whether or not that will stimmy the debt growth and fill the hole is a separate issue. I don't think it will, but at least they'll be on a better track. And if they do switch over to Bitcoin, there is a chance that there's hope. if they don't do something significant in Bitcoin, I don't think there's much hope. And same for Canada. So the question is how radical a set of changes can be implemented in a short time to turn things around, because there needs to be radical intervention right now in a lot of fronts. So we'll see. It's difficult because nobody wants change, right? Everyone has their own interests. And doing something like Bitcoin is even harder because you're fighting against entrenched perceptions on Bitcoin and just general ignorance about the necessity of Bitcoin or even money.
What do you think is the most important downstream effect of a Bitcoin? So let's say 10, 20, 30, 50 years down the line, how does this change humanity for the better?
The biggest downstream impact that Bitcoin can have is it restores our ability to be sovereign individuals. That's largely been taken away from us because centralization is convenient, and centralization of money supply and money management is definitely a huge convenience. But now we have this decentralized system that offers the same thing. So you can keep your money yourself and transact it yourself without an intermediary. And that changes the entire dynamic. I think it has an impact on the ability for countries to wage war as well. I strongly think that most people don't want war. People just want to build their families and see their children grow up happy. Nobody wants their kids to go die in a war. That's largely from uh, government's brainwashing or forcing them to send their kids to war, right? But
Yeah.
generally, if you ask someone, like, do you want your kids to go die somewhere else? They say no. And there might be good reasons, like protecting your borders from an attack or an invader, and you need to defend. But generally, like, a lot of wars are quite frivolous these days. Like, we think that guy's bad or he's got something bad, and we're gonna go there, right? I think Bitcoin will start to change that dynamic, that you can't finance a war because nobody will willingly give up their money to finance a war where their kids are going to have to go die somewhere. But
Yeah.
on that note, I think as well, at the same time, you'll start to see the emergence of people doing better things with their money than financing wars. Like, if you look at it, technology has not really advanced that much in the last couple decades. We thought we'd have flying cars and whatnot. So a lot of that innovation and advance through technology that we've had has sort of been siphoned away to people that have a lot of fiat, and they can use that fiat to create more fiat, and they might buy assets or they might just sit on that and have it grow over time. But they're definitely not investing in new technology. But maybe we'll see Bitcoiners that are self-sovereign invest into technology again and advance the development of our civilization. So maybe the focus will change from war to development, and we'll live in a better place because of it. I think Bitcoin should have a transformative effect on governance itself, whereby everything is more based on consensus, like the Bitcoin protocol. You're part of consensus. Nobody can overrule the protocol arbitrarily and change it. They can try, but they'll fail. But I think governments have to evolve because democracies are largely like a 51% attack. And it can be manipulated easily. If you break everything down, really, whoever has the most money gets to pick the next government, right? It's all about how much you can campaign and spend on ads and going around, flying around. And yes, you can be clever and spend less and beat your opponent, but that's not generally the case. Generally, whoever is able to reach those eyeballs can convince them to vote. And the incentive in this democracy is also, once you're in power, you want to distribute money to people and buy their votes for re-election, right? Everyone wants free stuff, even though it's not free, and they don't understand it's not free. But people haven't really figured that out yet. Bitcoin will help them with that. But the whole premise of democracy is that it is easily attacked, right? There's a lot of concern about outside interference and whatnot, but to me, that just signifies it's a very brittle system. Like, if you have to worry about, I don't know, like they love to say Russian influence or Chinese influence, then maybe the system is bad, that they can influence the elections here. maybe we should think about a better way. And the best way is probably a consensus-based system where everyone has to agree for rules to change. Otherwise, the rules just balloon and grow out of control, whereby you can't even know if you're breaking the law or not, because the law is evolving, because you created this body that just makes laws. And there's nothing in their charter that they need to remove a law. So imagine you have a game designer building a game. They can keep adding more rules, but they never remove anything. Or you have a code base that they're just adding more complexity to the code and never refactoring the code to make it function as a whole. That's really what government has turned into. It's a machine that makes laws and consumes money. And there's nothing there that makes them simplify, streamline, and optimize, which I think Elon Musk and Vivek seem to want to do. They want to put expiry dates for laws, which makes sense too. But a better model is rethink the whole thing and figure out how we can have governance without being ruled effectively. We have rules, but no rulers. So some sort of consensus-based system is probably what I believe is the best way, instead of having some group of people appointed to make rules for everyone else. Then you have to kind of lobby them, right? I think new rules have to have a supermajority agreeing before it can pass. And there is a counterpoint. When I presented this idea, people say, well, then no one will be able to make any new laws. And I'm like, well, maybe that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need that many laws. You just need some foundational rules, like don't steal, don't kill, don't do a certain number of things, and the rest is just flavor. And you can't park your car here on this hour from this hour. Those things are not that important, and you can figure out other ways to enforce some bylaw type regulations. But generally, I think a deregulation is needed, and we can see that it has a massive beneficial effect in Argentina, right? Housing costs, rental costs were skyrocketing. Milei deregulated it, and it all fixed itself. He's deregulating money. Now they have a surplus. You kind of need to add two and two together. And the incentive for government is not to eliminate itself. So there has to be some external forcing function that makes them want to optimize. Either you get a Malay, or you get a Department of Government Efficiency, or you have Bitcoin. But something has to fix it from outside, not from within.